Brad has been up here since Friday, and he plans to stay up here indefinitely. I just wanted to start again to continue with what Diane and Brad have said, that our hearts go out to you. We are so sorry for your losses, and I'm sure that you hear that often, but as we've driven around the community and as we've met with people, we can see how the community has really come together, and to us, that's inspiring. And also, although I live in the Bay Area, I have friends all over the country, and you are all in our thoughts and prayers, and we hope that you recognize that and it brings you strength. Just by way of background, my law firm has been bringing cases against PG&E since the late 90s. We've handled apartment explosions, manhole cover explosions, the huge explosion in San Bruno that PG&E caused that took out a whole neighborhood. There was a fire in 2015 that burned 77,000 acres in Calaveras County, and we represented hundreds of property owners in that case. We're currently involved in the North Bay fires, and so as soon as we started hearing reports of the fire, it was one of our biggest fears that, again, it would have been due to PG&E equipment. So I'll get more into what we know about PG&E a little later, but I just wanted to briefly find out more about you so that we can direct our remarks accordingly. So just hopefully you're okay with, by a raise of hands, if you would, who here lost their home in Paradise? Okay, so that's almost everybody. How about Magalia? Any other unincorporated areas? Pardon? Okay, Butte Creek, okay. Concal, okay. And then, were all of you owners, or were some of you renters? Okay. And were all of you insured, or any of you uninsured? Okay. So that is, any other big areas? Any of you lost family members in the fire? Okay.
One of my renters lost a brother.
Okay.
And, yeah, she's not here yet.
Okay, then I'll try and speak to her when later today. So thank you, that's very helpful. What we have handed out materials that have to do with tips for working with your insurance claims. And those are very general, but it is important. And there's a lot of just random things that we have learned from our clients over the years. For example, you should be sure to tender your insurance to any and all policies that you have. You may not feel that, or you may not think that that policy is triggered, but you really don't know. And there's no cost to you for just putting the insurance company on notice. One example I know of is a woman who lost the key fob to one of her cars was in her purse that burned down in the fire. And that key fob triggered her auto insurance even though her auto was not damaged in the fire. So you really don't know, and so just throw it all at the insurance company and find out what sticks. The other thing is, many of you may have already been in contact with your insurance adjusters, and you may have heard that they are coming from all over the country. And it's been our experience that most of them are from Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri. They're very unfamiliar with California. California's insurance laws are more strict than most laws in the state. And so they might not know what actually applies in California. And so you may find yourself actually educating your adjuster about the laws that apply. And do not be surprised if your adjusters change several times over the course of your, while your policy is open and while you're negotiating it. One of our clients in Santa Rosa has had 12 different insurance adjusters over the last 13 months. And so, given that, it's very important that you document all your communications. You should keep a running diary. They have your claim information in a database where each of the adjusters, anybody who is going to deal with your loss, will know exactly who said what and when. But if you don't similarly have a diary of those communications, then they may claim things were said that were not said. A lot of the adjusters will communicate with you via text. That is simple and quick, and especially for you when you're not in a home and you don't have your computer access. But if any major communications are made over text, be sure to confirm them in an email following the text, because it's almost impossible to chronicle your text messages with different, insurance adjusters. But if you have an email that allows you to track those communications much more efficiently. There is a law in the state of California that if you send a communication to the insurance company within 15 days of that communication, if it's reasonable for you to expect a reply from your communication, then the insurance company must respond to your communication within that 15 days. That's one of the laws that many of the adjusters are not aware of and often fail to comply with. But it's important for you to know that, especially when it comes to payments. They'll be very quick to pay you some of your advance you money for additional living expenses, some of your personal property damages. When any of these financial transactions occur, I would urge you to make sure that you have a written record of it so that you can rely upon it, a year or so from now when there'll be kind of a final accounting of your insurance situation. So those are just a few of the initial, tips that we have with regard to insurance. We handed out a flyer that has more information. We are going to be having meetings regularly in the community, and we're always happy to answer questions, to meet with you personally if you have any other specific concerns about handling your insurance. We posted some information on the wall over there about our next meeting. There'll be a meeting on Thursday and Friday. All of it is up on our website. So I'll give you a little bit more information. I'm a partner at the law firm of Danko Meredith. My name is Christine Meredith. We are working with two other law firms on these cases. So, and we have been working with them for many years now. And so we're known as the Northern California Fire Lawyers. So if you're ever looking for up-to-date information or contact information, that's our website, northernCaliforniaFireLawyers.com. And the reason why we have so many attorneys working on these cases is because we each bring something unique to the group. My law firm has trial experience against PG&E, and so we work with the clients in preparing cases for trial. Another one of the firms has experience in the management and working with the judges. Since the San Bruno explosion, they were appointed as lead counsel to work with the judges, and so they've kind of held that role in additional litigation. And then the third law firm does a lot of class actions and coordinated cases, and so they're very good at case management, and they assist with the communications with the clients on this brand level. And so we feel that we have a lot of skills to offer, and that it puts us in the best position to represent our clients. One of the other flyers that we handed out has to do with emergency resources, and it lists, some of the tips about returning to your property. And I believe, we don't know when that will happen, but when it does, it'll be helpful for you to kind of be prepared for that. I can't remember all the tips that we listed, but some are as basic, to make sure you have boots and a shovel, and it's going to be very hot, and there's danger. It's toxic conditions. So make sure that you take the proper precautions. We also know from our clients in the past that that it's a very traumatic situation, that you've experienced a traumatic event, and it will be ongoing for several months. Returning to the property is very emotional, and I encourage you to take other family members or friends with you at that time. I believe, or I imagine that many of you have had friends and relatives reach out, and they want to know how they can help you. And that's one of the ways, is to be with you when you go to the property, and to be able to help you. Basically what most of our clients have done when they've returned to the property that has been completely damaged is to look for jewelry, because or other special mementos that may survive. And so it helps to have other people going through that rubble with you, and it will make the process a little quicker. We've had clients who do not want to return to the property because it's too sad for them and too emotional, so they send friends or family members to do it for them. So you could should consider really if you need to be there. It is a significant loss. Based upon our experience, our clients go through the grieving process, and so give yourself the space to do that, and be sure to take care of yourself throughout the process. And Brad, do you think any other basic tips?
Yeah. Can everybody hear me without a microphone?
Yes.
Okay. As Christine said, going up there with somebody is going to be helpful, and that's going to stay true throughout this experience. Your neighbors, the ones who are going through this with you, they're really the only ones who really know what you're going through. We've talked to hundreds and hundreds of people who have been through similar situations, but as you know, unless you go through it yourself, we just don't know it the same way that you all do. So get the contact information for your neighbors. A lot of times you think, it's the guy across the street, I can find him real easy. But now it's hard to find them, so if you do come across them, make sure you get their contact information. That's something that's really helpful. We can help with the kind of general tips, we can help with the lawsuit. Where are you going to get toiletries? Where are you going to get pants this week, or socks? That kind of stuff is something that your community, your network, your personal local network is going to be your best source. One of the things we did 3 or 4 years ago as a group, we talked to some survivors. One of the attorneys talked to survivors of the Oakland Hills fire, and that was their top tip. Their number one thing that they still remember 20-something years later is how much help their neighbors were able to provide them. All the practical, this is what you need to do today type help. Is there a question way in the back? You can't hear very well?
That was their job.
Okay. Thank you. So I think that Christine was saying earlier, keep a log of your communications with your insurance adjuster. They are all from across the country. They're not trying to do a bad job, but they just have no idea what it's like in California. They're not here on the ground. They don't know what the market's like. We've had people say, oh, well, we doubled the local rate, so now it's $110 a square foot to rebuild, which is way cheaper than it was before the fire to build up there. And so they just don't know. So be patient with them, try and educate them. If they really start jamming you up on something, that's something we're happy to reach out to the insurance adjusters for too. We can try and help you out, give you some tips, specifically on dealing with adjusters.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Yeah, from how far back?
I'm thinking about this, and they try to give you a lower amount.
Yeah, so oftentimes adjusters, right, they're from, somebody I talked to is from Missouri. Building costs in, wherever they were in Missouri is cheap, $80, $100 a square foot, something like that. Something you couldn't dream of building for out here. And so even sometimes they bump it up 150% or 200% of their cost, and it still comes nowhere close to what your actual rebuild estimate will be when you try and rebuild your home. They're not trying to do a bad job. They think doubling the price is crazy to them. They just don't know what it's like in California. So work with them. One of the things that in California they have to do is I believe they actually have to give you a number that you can go get a contractor for. So if they say, I can, here's $80 a square foot for your rebuild, ask them, like Christine was saying. If you ask them a question, they have, in writing, they have to respond within 15 days. So ask them, give me a list of contractors who will build my house for that price. Make them do that. If they can find somebody for $80 a square foot, awesome. Maybe use that guy, maybe question how he's doing that. But that's one of the things that you can make them do. We got a question?
Yeah, so I already got a call from an investor, and they said that basically, a situation like this, the current policy is just to see, okay, what's the limit of your policy? They document this destroyed and give you a check for that. But is there anything that triggers, what if that's not enough to replace the house? Is there something that triggers even higher than your policy limit, or is that an absolute ceiling?
Okay.
Okay. So the question was, what if what the insurance adjuster says, hey, here, you've reached your limit, how can you get above that? Is that right?
Well, basically,
Yeah. So kind of a couple things going on there. One, every insurance policy is unique. Some people have replacement value, some people have 200%, 150%, some people just have the value of the home insurance. So let's talk about each one of those a little bit. Kind of the basic home insurance you can get is say, my home's worth X amount of dollars, so I have an insurance policy for X amount of dollars. One of the problems that we run into, and you all might be facing, is that may have been accurate when you bought the house and first got it insured 10, 20 years ago. Since then, it hasn't really kept up with the price of real estate going up. So you find, all right, I was insured for $150,000, but the house was actually worth, twice that. So how can you get to that, the next level of money coming in from the insurance company? Some people have replacement value, or where you can get the insurance company to give you more money as you spend it. It's kind of a weird cart before the horse situation where, and it's specific to your policy. Not all policies have it, but some people say you can get 150% of your coverage. So if you had a $200,000 coverage, you can spend up to $300,000 rebuilding your home. Some people have 200% coverage, you can get double that. There are very specific circumstances per policy, but those are out there. So if you have replacement value, if you have something, give it a read, call your adjuster, talk to them real quick. You should be able to just quickly ask, hey, do I have replacement value on my house, and what's my limit on it? If you don't have, we often find, I think in the North Bay, United Policyholders, a group who everyone should contact. If you have insurance, contact United Policyholders, look them up. They're great resources for people going through kind of what you all are going through. They're an independent organization whose literal existence is just to help people dealing with their insurance policies. But yeah, give them a call, ask if you got replacement value, what the limit is, and then you start working with them. You can start talking to them about, hey, if I got a contractor who can do it for this much, is it covered? It gets really nuanced the deeper you get. There's things like code upgrades, outbuildings, everything like that that kind of pile on. So make sure you talk to them. There's little, you get 10% for code upgrades, or 10%, 5% for landscaping. So you want to make sure that you fill in each of those buckets. You want to take all the money out, fill in or take out, but use all the money in each bucket. So sometimes that means, can I get part of the rebuild if we use, code upgrade vents on the side of the house? Can we get that paid for through that bucket instead of the main building fund? And we're happy to talk to you more kind of individually, but the key there is to really read your policy. I know they're long, I know they're complicated, it's not fun, but the better you know it, the better you can advocate for yourself, and the better you can inform us so we can try and help you advocate to get what you deserve out of insurance.
So most of you probably don't have your policy because it was likely burned in the fire. So your adjusters will likely provide you with a copy of it if you haven't heard from them, or you're still waiting on it. If your agent was not impacted by the fire, they should be able to get you a copy as soon as possible. Many of the insurance companies have your policies available online. If you kind of go through their website and your policy number, you should be able to access it. There are several parts to the policy, and generally each part has a different amount. Most of them are based upon Part A, which is your dwelling coverage. So we, kind of urge you to read that carefully, and it does vary on a company by company basis. Another thing that goes along with this, the neighborhood issues are also, communicate with your former neighbors about who represents them, as what policies they have, because it may assist in the negotiation process. Because you'll have different adjusters. One adjuster might do something for your neighbor down the street, but your adjuster is refusing to do that. And so you can let them know that somebody else who has AAA got a better deal than you did. And then a lot of it will be, constantly working on it and having to, what we say, run it up the ladder. The first guy you talk to is not going to approve everything that you want. You'll have to talk to the supervisor and raise it through management. So I did see some questions while Brad was speaking. Have we answered those? There's one back.
Yeah, you said United Policyholders. What is that?
Yes, so that's a nonprofit organization out of San Francisco. And they represent, you are a policyholder, and so they represent you. They will likely come to town and have an informational meeting. That's what they generally do in disaster situations. And so if we hear about that, we'll post it on our website, and then their website also has a lot of very helpful information.
What's the name of it again?
United Policyholders.
Okay.
Yes.
So my insurance, when it just renewed, I called to question it, and she said that I had, the value of my home, they base it on, I have something on there where it's based on the cost to rebuild at the time that it burns. Is that like just the regular replacement cost, or is that something that's different? Because costs have gone up.
Sure. Yeah.
Here recently.
That it would be hard to know without more details about the policy, but that's what generally it should be, you know, based upon the cost at the time that it needs to be replaced.
Okay.
And so different policies though would interpret whether or not the limit, where the limit applies.
Okay.
Yes?
I'll just speak about the policy that I have. And I've always been real proactive with my insurance. I've lived in that house for 37 years. And about every other year, I go through my policy with my, you know, with my, the person that I.
Agent.
My agent. And so I'm forever, you know, updating it to the current. So what I've done on my house is I have, as of 2 years ago when I did the last time, and then I have what it would have cost to replace that building, that structure at that time, and then I have plus 15%. So I think it pretty much depends upon your policy, and, you know, so I know what my number is, and I think I could probably rebuild my house for that. But then I have my main, well, I have 3 structures on my property. I have the main one, and so then I made sure that my other ones were covered too. If you didn't do that, you know, so I think it's up to you what your policy reads. And but my main question that I came here to find out, and I have some vacant land, and I don't have I'm not paying homeowners on that, although I am covered with the liability through my current homeowners that may dwelling. But now that my house and everything is gone on my main property, how long do I have to, you know, I don't want to continue to pay that premium on that structure because it's gone now, and I'm going to get it replaced or whatever, the money or however. So how does that work? I mean, do I say, okay, I want my premiums, you know, I want my annual premium different now because it's different. So, you know, it's like you pay a month in advance. So they've already taken my money now for the next month. Well, they take my money for something that they don't need to insure because it's not there anymore. How does that work?
I've seen different ways that it's been handled. Some insurers will freeze it and while there's a negotiating, but as soon as you start to build.
If you pay your insurance policy in advance and you've already paid for the next month, then there's,
Well, everybody does because
Yeah.
that's the way they do.
Well,
Everybody does.
and there's nothing left to insure there right now, so you kind of paid to insure. You're not getting anything from your policy this month. Negotiate. It's one of the things that you might think that, hey, I'm talking to an insurance agency. I don't know what they got all the power. They're the experts. You can negotiate. Lots of people negotiate different, aspects of it. One of the other top, big tips that we've gotten from people in person who have gone through it in the North Bay fires last year is, towards the start, if you have assisted living expenses or alternate living expenses, that's generally what they pay you to kind of pay rent in a different spot for 2 to 3 years. Maybe 1 second. And so some people have been able to negotiate with their insurance broker, their agent, that they can actually take that kind of in a lump sum and use it for, say, a down payment on a condo in town or someplace they can live in the intermediate time. So that's something you might want to look at as well.
So my thought is to me, I'm not going to negotiate with any of them. My thought was okay, I'm just going to cancel my policy. I'm already covered. I was current during the loss, and now I'm going to cancel my policy, and because I don't have to have it, I do maybe want liability. So then I'll say, okay, I want a new policy of liability. That's what I'm thinking of doing. That's why that was the question I wanted to ask. I'm not going to negotiate with them. There's nothing to negotiate.
Well, you could say if you have a deductible you can get them to apply to that, apply it towards your deductible. You can talk to them about it. They might be able to do that for you. So.
The payment that they've already taken.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about that particular payment other than I just want to know is that something that you recommend to do?
I guess we should, I should give this caveat. We are not insurance attorneys, we're fire lawyers. What we're sharing with you is what we know based upon hundreds of clients that we work with in helping them with their insurance issues. Generally, the insurance issues, other than being underinsured, hasn't been a major problem for our clients because they have been paid by their insurance companies, and their insurance companies are suing PG&E to get reimbursed for the payments that they make. So there's not a huge fight about how much they're gonna pay you because they're looking to PG&E to be paid. The caution that I have, and something that most of our clients are concerned about at later down the road, is their insurance canceling them because of the risk of fire. One of the recent legislations prohibits insurance companies from cancellation up to 3 years, I believe, after the disaster. But given that potential risk, I don't know whether I would cancel existing insurance because with this new legislation, I'm not sure if it would apply to the availability of a new insurance policy. Does that make sense?
I probably would go elsewhere anyways, I don't think that I stick with my choice.
Okay, there's a question in the far back.
Based on the premise of your opening the discussion of the PG&E issue,
Yes.
if one is insured and recovers based on their insurance, what additional can one expect from PG&E?
Right. Okay, so there are several items that are not covered by your insurance. Most of the people who have lost property, their policies do have limits on items such as other structures. Generally, fences fall in that category, and in many areas, their policy does not cover fully the fences. There are trees. The landscaping portion of your policy usually will not fully cover your landscaping to replace it. There is a great value to amenity trees, is what they're called. The insurance company might pay $700 for, the cost of replacement of a tree. But to the value of your home, from a replacement perspective, they can actually be, over $10,000 depending upon the type of tree or where it's located. So there are additional items that are not covered by insurance. Your lost wages, any personal injuries that you suffered, your emotional distress, and your mental anguish. You will be reimbursed for most of your personal property that you lost. So items such, as, everything that was in your house, you can put a dollar value on. But there are many sentimental items that were likely lost in a fire. And the insurance company is going to give you maybe $15 for a quilt. But if that quilt was made by your grandmother, and you planned on passing it down to your children, and that is really priceless. Well, something like that goes into the category of mental anguish, and that's recoverable against PG&E. Yes?
My property had over 100 fruit trees that were mature and producing,
Yes.
and I'm not sure what part of my policy covers that.
Right. So
Do I have to reach out to them, or?
you definitely would ask your insurance company, to what extent they would be covered. But he had over 100 fruit trees on his property, and that would be recoverable against PG&E. And there are items such as crops or the intent to raise livestock. You had, chickens or a goat or on your property. Things like that trigger additional value for recovery against PG&E and attorney's fees. So that is another thing another reason why it's really important to understand all of your options with respect to being made whole after an event like this. Yes, question right here.
So, maybe this question was asked and I missed the answer, but to be clear, if my home is insured for $200,000 and it's worth $4, my insurance company pays me $2, do I have a good chance of recovering the other $2 delta from PG&E because of its net value?
Yes. That's, there's many of the clients that we have in other fires are in that situation where they're underinsured by several $100,000 to millions of dollars.
Right.
And so, that becomes part of the claim against PG&E. And that is something that we've been successful in recovering on behalf of our clients. Yes.
I know up in Reading, when they had their fires, there was sound like about a 30% increase in home values pretty soon thereafter because the market was saturated, people looking for homes. And this lady back here mentioned getting a dollar amount to rebuild your house based upon its value at that time. Are there like actuary tables that give you an idea of, based upon what your home was like, what a ballpark cost would be for that house to be built per square foot at this time? And are there laws to prevent you from being gouged? And let's say, for example, your house, if it were to be built right now today, it would cost around $50 a square foot. And because we're going to have, I mean, all the contractors are going to be just super busy here. People coming from out of the county and certainly maybe even out of the state, prices might go up. Are there laws that would prevent that from happening?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure who heard it, but it has to do basically with price gouging. So because of the demand for contractors, whether there'll be a sharp increase in cost to rebuild, and if there's any laws to prevent that. When a disaster is declared, there is an automatic freeze, an anti-price gouging element to that, but unfortunately it is short-term. It depends upon how long the governor enacts it. And it mostly applies to your rental situations and rebuilding, immediate costs of things. And so if any of you feel you're experiencing price gouging initially, actually you should report that to the State Attorney General's office for investigation now that a disaster has been declared. But with respect to contractors, there is none that I'm aware of. As Brad mentioned, the estimate you get from your insurance is is usually based upon formulas that they have. And we do urge our clients to get their own estimates once they receive the estimates from their insurance company. And that will be, requires finding other contractors. For our clients, we do retain contractors who work with our clients to come up with estimates for the cost of replacement of their homes as part of their claim against PG&E. Because sometimes our clients who are uninsured, do not have the resources, and they're not going to rebuild immediately. And so that's one of the services that we provide, and we advance those costs. Yes.
Are federal agencies exempt from liabilities, and how will this affect the taxes, federal taxes?
Federal aid, it depends.
Such as the Forest Service with forest management.
Okay. So your question about liability is that if you believe there's a potential claim against the Department of Forestry for negligent forest management? Yes, there are usually protections that prevent us from suing the federal government. It isn't impossible to sue them, but the standard is very high. And so it usually requires intentional conduct in order to sustain a claim against the federal government. Yes?
So, building off of that, instead of going after the Forest Service, could we go after groups like the Sierra Club that have stopped us from managing our forests?
That is an interesting argument. We haven't considered it. Generally, in order to prove wrongdoing, you have to show that there was misconduct or a lack of conduct on their part. And then also, you would want to prove that when you're proving your damages, you would want to be sure that there's a fund to recover from. So as far as the Sierra Club, generally they're a nonprofit, and so I don't think they have a pocket big enough for claims of this nature.
Yeah. If you remember, like the car fire this summer up in Reading, that was started by a person with their trailer who started it. They're responsible for starting the fire. You could go after them, but you'd be splitting the value of their trailer, right, between everybody who was affected. So same kind of theory with Sierra Club or any other nonprofit that you might hold responsible personally. There's just not something there to go after in a lawsuit.
There's a question over here, I think. Yes.
So I owned my condo at 597 Maxwell, and my question is, I didn't have homeowners insurance because I'm a nursing student and I am living paycheck to paycheck, so that just wasn't something that I had. But the HOA, gratefully, they have insurance. My question is, are they supposed to help me out at all, or it's only, the policy is only for the HOA for Pignell and just to rebuild the condo?
Yeah, that we've had similar situations in the past, and generally the HOA, they are obligated to have insurance so that they can rebuild because of the common structures. But it's unlikely that their insurance covers your personal losses. But it doesn't hurt for you, to find out more information about it. And, that's something that we, help, kind of figure out, because sometimes it's to their advantage, to maximize their recovery, maybe to have you cooperate in, in certain ways. So it might be negotiable. Yes?
What if I decide not to rebuild?
Yeah, that is my question. Is there a different way of processing that if you decide not to rebuild and stay in town?
So your insurance company, that's another kind of provision in California law, is that you can take the money to rebuild and apply it to another lot, and so you can rebuild anywhere that you choose. So that is something worth exploring or considering. If you do not rebuild on your lot, then that does impact any claim that you might bring against PG&E. A lot of the value that you recover in maximizing your loss is the personal attachment that you had to that property, and to everything that the property offers you. Yes, in the back.
Are any funds recovered on valuables within the property, not the property itself or the building, taxable?
Yes. So it depends. I mean, If it's funds that you recover that are replacing your insurance, then I believe no. But if it's funds that you, in addition, that you recover from another source, such as PG&E, then it would likely be taxable. We also are not tax attorneys, so we don't give specific advice on that. But it is important for you to speak to your bookkeeper or your accountant, because when a disaster occurs, there are accounting techniques and IRS provisions that allow you to take a loss and in your tax return. But then as you are repaid, you have to kind of take that into consideration. So it's so that's an important question to get answered earlier rather than later. Yes?
So you can't do it. My son has health issues, and the climate that is up there after this could kill him. So we have to move, we have to relocate. Would that still affect my claim with PG&E?
It will affect it, but probably not negatively. If it was a genuine desire to rebuild at that location, but you can show it's an impossibility, then that would be the argument that would be made. Brad.
Yeah, and I wanted to add two things to that question and the question before regarding taxes. Like Christine said, we're not tax attorneys, but we know that is a big issue facing everybody. It's 5 months away, give or take. So one of the things we've done in the past, like in the Santa Rosa fires, the Napa fires, we'll team up with the tax attorney and try and get them up here to do one of these kind of town hall meetings with as well. This week, we've just been trying to get up here and get resources up here, drive up donations, so we haven't thought that far ahead. But that's one thing that hopefully we'll be able to do here in the coming weeks. And if not that soon, hopefully soon, we'll be trying to get actual tax attorneys in here to do this same kind of thing. We've done it in the past. And regarding the rebuild, as Christine said, if there's a genuine desire to rebuild on the lot, but you can't for whatever reason, it's impossible for health issues or whatever it is, that doesn't affect the claim very much. But even if, say you do just want to get out of Dodge, you just want to get out, don't want to be here again, you want to take the money from insurance and leave, that affects your case against PG&E, but it doesn't negate it. You would still have a case, and it's still a case we would work with you on. It's not going to be as big of a case, but it's still going to be a substantial case. So just because you move doesn't mean that you give up any rights against PG&E.
How do they determine that value if you want to do not rebuild? Is that something negotiated? Is it based on market value at the time of loss?
So he's saying, how do you calculate the value if you want to not rebuild and you want to go, right? So there's kind of two avenues there. One is insurance. How do they do the value to give you your payout? And then the lawsuit. Insurance, that is something you should talk to them about specifically. It depends on your policy about whether or not you got rebuilds, 150 or 200%. One of the other new legislations that was just passed and signed a couple months ago was that they really made it clear that you can take all of your money from your insurance company to buy a place somewhere else. So that means your outbuildings, that can go towards a new house too if those were insured.
Is that a single one-time payout from them?
From the insurance company? So, how do you mean?
Well, if you're going to get out of Dodge, as you say,
Yeah.
you're going to get a payout, it's a one-time payoff, that's it.
So if you are going to move out of the area, is it a one-time payout from the insurance? Probably. Again, unfortunately, a lot of real specific questions about policies are going to be unique to your policy. So I can't tell you for sure. Okay. But yeah, I would expect.
And then also, it's separate. There's the structure payout, but then there's the real estate itself. So there's two things: the lot also that you own.
Yeah.
That is sold as a lot
Correct.
through who, a realtor?
Yeah, if you want to sell the lot, realtor.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. In the other avenue that addresses your question against PG&E, we usually end up hiring people, local real estate agents familiar with the market who can tell us kind of what was the value of the home the day before the fire. We don't just go on Zillow and take the estimate. We use
They're
experts.
professional appraisers.
Yeah, we use experts to do that. So we get them to appraise it kind of the day before and right after. And the difference in that value in the property, diminution of value of the property, that's something that we go after in the lawsuit as well.
So I'm going to pause. We have Suzanne here who actually lost her home about 6 months ago. And so she has come, and Diane invited her to give us some tips, to give you some tips.
Okay. Sorry everyone's losses, and it's been really rough on everyone, what they've been going through the last couple of days. So I just came, Diane asked me to talk real quick about my experience, what I've been going through. My fire was in April of this year, on the 14th. So my fire wasn't involved in a big force or anything like that. It was a simple structural fire, self-contained. It was just my house. My house wasn't a total loss. So I still had the roof and the walls that were still standing. So I had something to work with to rebuild. I can tell you initially, my insurance company, which is one of the larger insurance companies out there, came out and it took about a week to get out there. And they wrote initially a check that gave me money that was kind of a good faith. I had a good policy, it was well paid, and I was well insured. So they gave me money right then to initially get things going. I can tell you I didn't see another check for them for over 4.5 months. They tried to lose contact with me. I had to be very aggressive. There was, unfortunately, because the car fire happened about 6 weeks after my fire, it did kind of move the agents. So what they did is they brought in agents from other places to try to take over cases. This delayed my case further, so I was bounced around a little bit. That took them about, just recently, I finally received the estimate from them on what it would cost to rebuild my house as far as what their estimates were. I can tell you they were not to today's market. Being that I had just remodeled my house, finished last December. So for me, luckily, I have all my bills, and I can tell you exactly what my carpet costs and other things. I would encourage you guys, if you're planning on rebuilding, to start kind of, there's so much when this first happens to kind of look at. But slowly, if you start remembering what kind of carpet, if you bought it recently, or flooring, start kind of putting those things in a file and just put them aside for later. Because you will have to go back, as I have been doing, and you're going to have to kind of argue for what you need. I'd also encourage anyone, if you have grouping together, would probably be helpful in the situation. We have the same insurance companies and roughly the same things going on, to work together as a team. You have to stay on them. I found my calls were from, how it kind of works is it's not your agent who you went and got your policy from on the corner. It's, someone handles your case out further. So you're relaying messages, trying to get a hold of people. That became very frustrating for me, especially when they were there for over 6 weeks. They couldn't tell me who that agent was because someone left on stress leave, understandable, with the car fire. But that was kind of the battles that I faced. So what I want to tell you all is it does get better. there is, it does improve. But it is a battle that I want to tell you guys, you have to save your energy, have someone there as your advocate to help you. When you have a conversation with someone on the, whoever it is at your insurance agency, type it afterwards, what you guys discussed, what their plan is, what plan of action is at, and you're going to email it to them or get their fax number and fax it to them. One of the things I had happen when they ignored me for quite some time was I went and sent them a very lovely letter, and I drug all of their names into it and let them know what I was going to do with that letter with the insurance commissioner. I had a return phone call in less than 12 hours. It was wonderful. They sent me a check to try to shut me up as quick as they could. They overnighted it to me because they were so concerned about my losses from 6 months ago. And I got that check. Now that was just what I called the keep me quiet money. I then said, this is a nice offering, but let's keep things going. So I had to keep fighting every step of the way. I am still not rebuilt. I'm still living on a trailer on my property. By the way, they will not offer you they offer to set you up somewhere. They have another agency a lot of times call you guys, say, hey, let's set you up with housing. But you also have the option that they don't tell you to stay on your property. If you have a partial home still standing and you want to be near your stuff, or in my case, I had livestock that I had to be near, they don't tell you that's an option. I do know from people that they sometimes give large lump sums, or if you, what I did was we purchased an RV and I went to what it would cost to rent that RV through RV rentals here in Chico and pulled up comps. So then now the insurance company's reimbursing me for that living expense. And at the end, my parents gave me RV. So just so you guys know, there are options they're not telling you guys about. So I would encourage you guys to communicate with each other. Every insurance company is different, obviously. And as far as living expenses, what you have, all that's going to be different. I can just tell you what I did in my experience. And the main thing I can say is record what you do when you're spending, going out there spending, buying dinners, gas, trips. If you're cleaning your place, you're moving stuff, you need to document all of the time you're spending so you can be reimbursed for your time. Because that's something that they would be paying the cleanup crew. If you do have a house that's partially standing, or you have a smoke damaged house and your neighbors do, be very cautious with calling in those companies. I know they're already contacting people to come in and clean your house. Be very cautious. The money they take from cleaning your house comes out of, if they're doing your demo on your house, that comes out of your rebuild. You're losing that for your structure. If they do cleaning on your clothes, that comes out of your contents. So before you send me your clothes, I can tell you the prices that I saw, and I stopped it immediately when I realized what they were charging me for items. It was very expensive. I had them do some of the demo work on my place. They did the initial rip out. They were good at getting things rolling for me. That was helpful because I had a really active agent who was helping. But once it got to the contents and cleaning, that's when I stopped them. Things got really high on the price range, which was going to come out of my pocket. I was lucky because I had, my house was well insured, so I had a large pocket. But I didn't realize that when they pay those checks, everyone sees those numbers of what you have to spend. So they kind of then know what they have to gain from you. So I would also caution you to know when your insurance company sends a check that to those cleaning places, they will see what you have for contents and other things. And I didn't know that. I found out. So, that's, again, I'm sorry for all your losses. It does get better. Things come together, but really, just stay on your insurance company. Don't give in. You know what your, items are worth. Document what you have. If you have pictures and stuff, start going through your. That's about the thing that's last as far as when these things happen is getting your contents back. I know with my insurance, I have 2 years to claim my contents. So check with that how long you have. You don't want to lose your time for an expiration because you didn't know you only had 6 months to claim something or start something. So make sure you find out those times when you open your claim and get real specific and take down that lovely operator's name and put her on there and then write that, confirm that with your agent. My agent was really helpful as far as who sold me my policy, who's been my agent for 15, 20 years now. He was really helpful in helping me attack his own insurance company who wouldn't pay me. And his help did get me my money. So I'd also encourage your local office, they're probably overwhelmed. But when you get stuff, definitely utilize them as well because they can help with getting through those higher levels. So, anyone have any questions? I can only tell you about what my personal experience was. Everyone's insurance is different. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. One thing to add to that, when she was describing the personal property inventory, it is a very lengthy, detailed process, and that's another part of this process that we urge our clients to make sure to invite their friends to help them with. They just have somebody come over and transcribe what your losses are. It'll make it go a lot quicker and be less painful. Did you have a question?
Just to change the subject.
Yeah.
So commercial property, that is a business that I have in Paradise. So the ability to rebuild is one thing. But if we need to rebuild now, I won't have the density in Paradise for a very long time to support that business. Does the PG&E lawsuit would have loss of income that would have been generated by your business?
Yes. Yes, so there would be a business loss claim that would just It requires showing your historical profit loss types of statements, generally going back for 5 years. Depending upon the business, we usually sometimes hire an economist or a business expert to help us quantify those losses, but they are definitely a part of the claim against PG&E.
As for me to rebuild, great.
But there's no customers, right?
No employees, no customers.
Right, yeah, so definitely that is a huge part of it, yes?
Something to consider is when you purchase stuff at Costco, they have a complete record of that, and Lowe's does it too. If you have that Lowe's little tracking card.
Right.
Depot has that, so you can have them, or end of the year summary reports from your credit cards. You can get those from them again, and that way you can mark off like stuff that you got, big ticket items.
Yes, that's a great suggestion as far as recording your expenses or backing out what your personal property losses are to go to your vendors, whether it's Amazon, Home Depot, Costco. The other suggestion that I've heard is actually when you get paid from your insurance company and you start purchasing new items, to consider just using a separate credit card that has a unique number. So those are all your rebuild expenses. So when it comes time to make your claim for replacement items or in your lawsuit against PG&E, it'll be much easier to itemize those losses.
I'm just wondering that because this is kind of a unique situation with the devastation to the entire infrastructure of the entire community, if there are exceptions or an argument to be made that extensions need to be put on time to get things back in order. Because like he said, he has no employees, he has no customers, because no one will be there for quite a while in order to get that infrastructure back up and running.
Right, interesting. So as far as extensions of time, there are extensions that have been enacted recently by the legislature after the Napa fires. And so most of the deadlines that apply to insurance companies have been extended another year. That might not be sufficient for these cases, so I would urge you to contact your local legislatures or your assembly members, so they should start advocating, for you in rebuilding your community. That it was really significant, with our other clients and how the fires uniquely affect them, and so. In the San Bruno explosion, that assembly member, he has been very active in holding PG&E accountable ever since that explosion many years ago, and so have those people who suffered the losses. So that kind of brings us back to PG&E. Just real briefly, to kind of explain why we're up here and why we're reacting so soon. Based upon the initial investigation that there was damage to a transmission tower, PG&E knew about it even before the fire started and had mobilized a crew to go out to that location. It appears pretty straightforward that it was PG&E's equipment that caused this fire. Unique to California is the law that if a utility company was a private utility company such as PG&E, if its equipment causes the damage, then they are responsible for the property damage and any attorney's fees related to the recovery of the losses. So it doesn't require showing that PG&E did something wrong at that time. The standard is that their property actually caused the fire. Their equipment caused the fire. So whether it's a transmission line, a power pole, a wire, when the investigation shows that it causes the fire, then they are often, the next standard would be negligence. Did they do something wrong? And if they did, then they should be held accountable for their wrongdoings. And that is what allows us to recover for losses such as emotional distress, for business losses, for any non-property losses. In this case, it seems pretty clear that if there was something wrong with the wire and with the transmission lines and they didn't get out there in time to prevent the fire, then that would be a negligence claim. And what we have learned over the years is that PG&E has a run-to-failure mentality. That's why there was a gas line explosion. It's because instead of checking the pipes and replacing them within 45 years, they waited until it exploded, and now they're replacing all of the pipelines. And we've seen that in other cases where there's been other explosions or power poles have fallen down because they've deteriorated with woodpeckers, over the years. That they have failed to maintain their equipment, which has caused these fires. When we take the depositions of the CEOs over the years of PG&E, after San Bruno, they said, we're recreating this company. We know we did something bad, and we're never gonna make that mistake again. We've changed our management structure. And then 3 years later, there's a huge fire caused by PG&E's power lines. And when we take the deposition of the CEO again, they say, well, we expect, our standard is zero tolerance for fire dangers. And so we're doing everything in our control so that the risk of fires is zero. And that 3 months after that statement made by their CEO was the fires in Napa and Sonoma counties. Then recently, the CEO, in its report to the shareholders, tells them that they take no responsibility for those fire losses, but they are blaming it on weather and the drought, and they're asking the legislature to take responsibility and to bail them out for the costs of related to the fire. And so we know historically that unless we continue to push to hold them accountable, they will continue their management practices, which lead to these tragic situations. Our clients, not only do we represent them in the courts, but we work with them to lobby, for legislation to protect their insurance rights and to not allow PG&E to change some of these laws that are currently holding them accountable and strictly liable for their losses. So that's why we kind of get in at the ground level and work with the community and continue to work with the community until either until a lawsuit is completed or until it requires lobbying in the state government. There's many methods that are necessary and that are used to promote the property owner's rights and to ensure that they are made whole for their losses. Do you, anything I overlooked?
I just want to touch real quickly on something Christine mentioned there, the run to failure mentality that PG&E tends to have. I hadn't heard that term before I started getting involved in this kind of work. So I'll just briefly describe it in case you haven't either. Run to failure is essentially you've got a piece of equipment, everybody knows it can't work forever, right? So you run it until it fails. So things that we do that every day with are like light bulbs, right? You run it until it burns out and then you replace it. You don't go change them every week to make sure they never run out. That's not normal. That's not what you do for a light bulb. But for safety equipment, you do change it prophylactically to make sure it doesn't fail. You don't drive around in your car until your brakes fail. You replace them when they become close to failing or when they might fail so that you don't have a failure. And that's what PG&E tends not to do. That's what we've seen in the past and what we're seeing here, is that they have the safety equipment. The power poles, the power lines, the transformers, these are hazardous things. They are dangerous, as we see now, as we saw last year, as we see every year when they fail. They start fires, they affect people. And rather than make sure that they're all replaced on time and that they're all in good working order, they just run them until they fail. Kind of if you listen to the CAL FIRE reports, obviously the weather has an effect on the fire, right? Haven't had rain in a long time, the fire is more intense. So PG&E's, I think, they're kind of used to in the past when we've gotten more rain, especially earlier in the year, their equipment fails, it starts a little fire, but it's a little fire because it rained last week, or there's just not the conditions that can have it grow so quickly and so tremendously. Well, the drought conditions change and kind of make the severity of the fire worse, but the causes of the fire, those have been going on for years. And it's just kind of the bed of fuel that those sparks are landing in that's changed, not what PG&E is doing to prevent the fire at all. So when they say this is the new normal in California, it's a drought, they're just doing riskier and riskier things because of the drought. What used to be a slightly more acceptable way to do it shouldn't be acceptable anymore. And what they did last year is spend a bunch of money trying to go to Sacramento and say, don't hold us responsible, as opposed to working on how to fix that problem and how to replace that equipment before it
They fails.
fails.
Sure know they must be responsible when they send you an alert that you're going to have your PG&E interrupted for 2 to 5 days. And when I got up that morning, it wasn't interrupted. We had a fire.
That's right. And
If there's they knew what was going on.
that's right. PG&E has they have a weather
I mean,
department.
we spent 2 days getting our house and lives prepared for no electricity for 5 days. First of all, you lose your food. I'm on oxygen. You have a lot of things you have to consider. So
Yeah, that's a definite part of it, that they had notice of these extreme conditions. So then, I guess finally, just to let you know that our law firm is filing a complaint against PG&E either tomorrow or Wednesday. The reason why it's important for us to bring the lawsuits so early is so that we can participate in the investigation. The only way that you can get access to the fire origin area is if you are a party to the litigation. So that's why we've already been contacted by victims and are filing a complaint on their behalf. So if you want any more information about getting involved in the lawsuit, there's no urgency for you to sign up. You have 3 years to bring a claim against PG&E, but based upon our experience, it is usually first in, first out. People who are involved early in the lawsuit, their cases are more likely to be settled with PG&E earlier. Yes.
Can it make it tonight? Can we give them your contact information and they can tell you if they want to?
Oh, definitely, yes. So, we put on Christine and Brad, that poster over there. Those are our cell phone numbers. You're welcome to share those with friends and family. Business cards are here, and we can be accessed through our websites as well. Yes.
And how can we get access to the video as well?
I don't know. Diane?
I think we're going to either get it on, I don't know, YouTube or some social media.
Okay.
But, yeah, we haven't quite figured that out because we just put this together at the last minute, but
Okay.
yeah, it will be available.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, just on a practical level, Christine and I are here. The last 3 or 4 days, however long it's been that I've been up here. If I'm not meeting with somebody, about their rights and talking to them about that, I'm volunteering at one of the shelters or running around trying to help people. As you all know, service isn't tremendous up here all the time. If you can't get one of us on the phone, our group number to the office back in the Bay Area is on all of our material. Give them a call, leave them a voicemail. They'll be able to get in touch with you maybe sooner than us. We'll try and answer every call, but just in case we can't, reach out to them too. There's attorneys there that do what we do. They're just at home right now and at the office, so they can talk to you too if you can't get a hold of us. But please try and reach us. We're up here to try and help you guys with whatever you need, lawsuit related or not.
Yeah, and Wednesday and Thursday, we're kind of just holding kind of office open hours at the Ramada on Manzanita. And so please feel free to let your friends and family know about that. And, we'll be holding meetings there. And, we can answer more individual questions at any time and even after the meeting tonight.
Yeah, we'll be around. We'll answer any questions you might still have. If you got more personal one-on-one type questions, we can be there. Please take food. We got so much food over there. It's not going to go to waste. Well, yeah. If you know other people,
Peanut butter and jelly.
yeah. There's but take them. If you know somebody who can use it. Otherwise, I'm taking them all in my car and driving around and handing them out by hand tonight. It's not going to go to waste, but that's a lot of pizza to hand out with one person, so if you can grab one. Chrissy will help. We got 2 people, but the more the merrier. Grab it, hand it out, eat it yourself. Please take whatever resources we have here. There's a few masks in the back, that's all we have left, but if you need a mask, please do so. I know yesterday it was less smoky, the smoke came back today. Even when it seems not smoky, there's still a lot of toxic stuff in the air. Please wear your mask whenever you can.
We should all be wearing masks. Yeah.
The doctors will yell at you from behind their mask, maybe. So please take care of yourself, take care of your immediate needs, and then when you're ready to think more long term, give us a call and keep us in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks.